Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to an exciting lecture on world religions and world politics. As a lot of you know, my name is Dr. Ronald Brown, and I'm here in New York City. I teach world religions, political science, international relations, at Touro College, which is in the city, and the Unification Theological Seminary. And I've been lecturing for some time on the twin topics of politics and religion, church and state, religion and government. This is my background. I have a BA and MA in history, one from Gannon University in Erie, Pennsylvania. My first MA in history is from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. My second MA is in world religions from Harvard Divinity School. And my PhD in international politics is from the University of Geneva in Switzerland. My father always made the joke that all of my university diplomas were in languages he couldn't possibly read, whether they were in Latin or Hebrew or French or whatever. He couldn't read anything. But yet, that is my specialty, church and state, religion and politics. Today, we're going to be talking about a fascinating topic, and this is globalizations. The globalization of the world. As I speak, the 2020 political campaign for presidency has just finished, and Vice President Biden has now become president-elect of the United States. And globalization is in the news. President Trump has been trying to put the halt to globalization, bring back factories to America, stop immigration, especially of non-white and non-Christian peoples. And so globalization is once again in the news, but it is also a reality. It is a reality that is going to dominate our future. And I would argue that it cannot be stopped. The thousands of books being published, lectures like this one, and other TV programs on globalization have shown that it is a controversial topic. So as you can see from the title, Globalization from Groceries to God, we could also say from Google to God or a lot of other things, because globalization impacts every moment of our life. As I sit here in my home office, I look around me. Almost everything I have in my office comes from a different country. The computer was made in China. The keyboard was made in Korea. Half of what I'm wearing comes from Guatemala or Pakistan. We live in a global world. And as I speak, I am drinking a glass of French wine. So this is globalization. It is controversial. It is being viciously resisted, as we're going to see, by many countries who are saying we are losing our sovereignty. We are becoming a cog in the wheel of global history. Little countries like the United States and Russia and China and South Africa and Italy are mere cogs in a wheel of a global economy. Of course, there's vicious resistance, but yet other people like me welcome it. As I just mentioned from my education, it is a global education. United States, Israel, Harvard, Switzerland, and then teaching as a professor. You're in Moscow, you're in Budapest, semester in Prague, I go to China, I go to Mexico, I lecture all over the world. And in fact, this YouTube video, which I'm making, will be viewed by people around the world. So globalization is a reality. I love it. But then I have to admit that a lot of people don't. So let's begin with our topic today. Once again, as usual, there's the outline. Actually, there are 10 points today, which is rather lengthy for my usual programs, but I want to explore all the aspects of globalization. Now, globalization is not just the only vision of the future. Many people have said globalization is one of many movements which will dominate our future. So we'll discuss a few of those in topic one. Then we will go to the reality of global economy. Like I just described, my home office is a microcosm of the world. Global education, well, there's definitely me there. Global information. I go on Google, I get information from all over the world. I just finished watching BBC News. I listen to Deutsche Welle every evening. I listen to the American news. Information is flowing around the world. Global migration. I went to the doctor. The nurse was from someplace in Central America. My doctor was from Iran. The surgeon was from Saudi Arabia. The only American-born person was the anesthesiologist, who was a nice guy from Queens, New York, where I live. Global entertainment, music, Hollywood films going around the world. Global armies. We talk about how individuals and groups can form their own armies. Armies are no longer just controlled by countries, but if you have enough power and influence, you can raise your own army. Global individuals, what Thomas Friedman calls super empowered individuals. For the first time in history, you don't have to be a king or a president or a dictator to determine the future of humanity. And of course, global religions, a unique aspect of globalization, which is rarely talked about, where a small religion that has basically been persecuted for centuries, such as voodoo in Haiti, can suddenly become a global phenomenon through migration, through tourism, and through missionaries going around the world. And of course, finally, point 10 is there are those who resist globalization and fiercely resist it. So let's get going on our exploration of globalization. From groceries to God. Well, globalization is not the only vision of the future. The one writer who celebrated globalization in its glory and in every aspect of it is Thomas Friedman. You probably know Thomas Friedman as a journalist at the New York Times, but a producer of phenomenal books on the phenomenon of globalization. The Lexus and the Olive Tree, and his major book where he describes the flat world with everything flowing from right and left and around the world with almost no impediments. His books From Beirut to Jerusalem discuss the Middle East. That Used to Be Us, How America Fell Behind in a World It Invented, meaning we invented the global economy following World War II. And now, in many ways, especially under President Trump, we fear the very global world that we created. And finally, his wonderful book, Hot, Flat, and Crowded, meaning this is the world we are living in. It is hot, global warming, flat, everything flowing freely around the world, and crowded mega cities with 50 million people. So Thomas Friedman is what we call one of the futurologists, looking into the future, trying to fathom where is our world going. Well, Thomas Friedman is not the only one who has been looking into the future. Francis Fukuyama said the future was going to be dominated by American liberal democracy and capitalism, that humanity had reached its culmination point with the collapse of communism and fascism. There was no competition to the global system of democracy and capitalism. Pat Robertson, on the other hand, in his New World Order, prophesied a spread of Christianity around the world. Another aspect of globalization, the globalization of God. Global warming, another issue that is global. I mean, a hurricane is formed off the coast of West Africa, crosses the Atlantic, demolishes the islands in the Caribbean, ravishes Mexico, and then, as I speak, heads up to Florida and to New Orleans, the global economy. Martin Jacques argues that the future is going to be dominated by China, the rising empire united with 1.5 billion people united under the Communist Party. Samuel P. Huntington, my old professor at Harvard, said, no, the future is going to be dominated by the great wars of religion. Jews fighting against Muslims to dominate the Middle East. Christians fighting against Muslims in Africa to control the country, the continent. In the United States, the old line religions of Catholics and Lutherans are fighting against the new emerging evangelicals and Pentecostals. In India, as we speak, the Hindus are expelling millions of Muslims and Christians. Niall Ferguson again prophesies that the United States is going to dominate the world, but it is going to be a reluctant empire because Americans have never really reconciled themselves to being the world dominating power. Well, it is Thomas Friedman's thesis that we're going to talk about today. Hot, flat, and crowded, and especially his book, The World is Flat, where he clearly says, a brief history of the 21st century, if not the third millennium. So get ready. The future is going to be a bumpy road, but it is going to be an exciting, flat world where people, ideas, money, religions flow around the world with nothing to stop it. The first time where a global culture is emerging. And Thomas Friedman argues that the age of the nation state, all these little colored areas on the map, nice little borders separating Germany from Poland. It looks so neat. Look at that nice straight line between Canada and the United States. Then you get to the Great Lakes. I mean, it looks so neat on the map. But people like Samuel P. Huntington, like Thomas Friedman are arguing, these maps are outdated. We're not talking about nations anymore. Doesn't make any difference what nation you belong to. The world is flat. Ideas, money, religion, entertainment, commodities flow across the border as if the border never existed. So Thomas Friedman argues that the age of national entities is finishing. National armies, independence, cultures, national languages, leaders, currencies, international law, international organizations, United Nations. This harkens back to the past. We are in an age of globalization. It is now global products. Half of the objects in the products in my refrigerator in my apartment come from God knows what country. Global education, I'm the perfect example. Half of my students are either immigrants or signing up for my online classes scattered around the world. I schedule it for 6 o'clock on a Wednesday evening like today. Well, I don't even worry. What time is it in Israel? What time is it in China? What time is it in California? Who cares? This is the time when the class is being offered. Global labor, I mean, half of the products, the agricultural products of the United States are harvested by illegal immigrant labor. My doctors are from all over the world. You go to another country, professors, I've taught all over the world. Labor flows wherever there is a demand. Global capital, money flows across the border into the stock markets of New York, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Tokyo, London, Frankfurt, or Paris, or South Africa. Global entertainment, half of the money, if not more, earned by Hollywood is because their films are so popular abroad. Half of the cartoons kids watch in the mornings, on the weekends, are made in Japan. Global religions, even minor religions that were not very important, such as evangelicals, Pentecostals, Mormons, suddenly have exploded across borders and become global religions. Global armies, the war between the Islamic movements in Afghanistan and the World Trade Center and New York City. First time a private army headed by an individual who was not a president could bomb New York City, something that Hitler and Stalin only dreamed of doing. Osama bin Laden did it. Global individuals. An individual today with the use of technology can become more powerful than presidents, kings, and generals. So the age of national identity is giving way to global identity. Half of my students have 3 and 4 passports. I ask, who are you? They ask me, what day is it? They do 1 degree in one country, another degree in another country, get a job in a 3rd country. When they get tired of it, they move to a 4th country. Global citizens. Well, the first big topic is the global economy. I mean, look at all the different ways of writing Coca-Cola. I mean, it is a global product, as it is. Oil companies, Exxon Mobil, British Petroleum, Shell, Levi's, an international company producing jeans on jackets all over the world. Toyota, Mercedes-Benz. I mean, any country you go to, the same automobiles are bogged down in traffic jams, whether you're in Johannesburg, South Africa, Buenos Aires, Montreal, Paris, or Shanghai. Lady Gaga, Everybody knows her. When a Hollywood movie comes out, they automatically translate it into every known language. When I watch a movie here, I have to choose which language do you want the film to be in. Avocados, when I make a salad, the avocado can come from Mexico, other products from around the world. So we live in an age of a global economy. The economy does not recognize international borders. The largest economies for cars. Look at Toyota is number one, Japan. General Motors, USA. Volkswagen, Germany. Nissan, Renault, Japan, France. Hyundai, Korea. Ford, USA. Ford, Fiat, Chrysler, Italy, USA. Honda, Peugeot, Citroën, and Suzuki. Automobile, the highway, every parking garage is a microcosm of the world. Largest chemical companies, Germany, USA, China, England, USA, Taiwan, Netherlands, Saudi Arabia, France. I mean, my medicine cabinet is a microcosm of the world. Who knew that 7-Eleven was a Japanese company? I go to 7-Eleven all the time in Mexico for coffee. Every corner in New York City has a 7-Eleven. Well, world outlets, look at the number, 50,000 outlets around the world. Japan, number one, followed by Taiwan, then USA, about equal, 7,800, Korea, 7,000, Taiwan, 5,000. They don't even mention Mexico, where there seems to be one on every corner. Remember going to a 7-Eleven once with my brother-in-law, who's a fierce, fire-breathing Republican. Everything is national identity and national autonomy. We went into 7-Eleven. When I went out, I said, do you know 7-Eleven is a Japanese company? He almost murdered me because he didn't know it. So here again, we deal daily with global economies, and we're not even aware of it. Central to the global economy is what we call the supply chain, where every car we have, every airplane, every computer is not actually made in one country. A country will specialize. Very often you buy something and they'll have these rather strange statements saying, assembled in the United States, trying to convince you that that you are supporting the American economy. Well, that's not the case at all. I mean, this computer probably has elements produced in 10 or 15 different countries. And we don't even talk about my mouse, my printer, or my keyboard, my memory sticks. I mean, the cables that I use. We don't even know where they are made. But in reality, like the car, which we see here on the right, every element is produced in a different place. Sensor hardware, 4 or 5 different countries, battery storage, the engine, cybersecurity, communications, automation, tires, repair, navigation and mapping, driver safety. I mean, it's not just a product. No product is produced in one country. The salad I had this evening, the avocado comes from Mexico. The vegetables, I have no idea where they come from, but they could come from Canada. They could come from California. They could come from Mexico or Central America, shipped into the grocery store. The bananas I just got were for someplace in Central America. So we all deal in global products, whether we like them or not. Look at this graph, almost impossible to read, but it shows the global cross-border capital flows just to real estate. And it has United States, Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Asia. How the money flows around the world, building factories, buying products. Oil and gas flows in giant super tankers around the world. Raw materials, coal from Australia, wood from the jungles in Africa and Brazil, agricultural products from Canada, soybeans from Argentina. Everything that goes into a product is global. There's energy, coal, oil, capital, who invests in the company, labor, where are the workers from, technology, who invented the technology that goes into all the robots that are producing our cars, professionals, what universities did they go to, and research and development. Who pours the billions of dollars into inventing something which is then bought by somebody else, financed by another country, building a factory in a fifth country and exporting around the world. Global education. Once again, the perfect example is me. Largest universities in the world: India, Iran, Turkey, Pakistan, Bangladesh, again Iran, Bangladesh again, Indonesia, Nepal, again India, Thailand, India. Finally, at the bottom, you get United States University System of Ohio with 500,000 students, and the United States University of New York, founded in 1948. Again, almost 500,000 people. And here again, the largest universities attract students from around the world. Some universities are English speaking, such as India, attracting English speaking people from Asia, from Africa, even from Europe. Where are the professors from? Computer technology is a global commodity. I was at the University of Shanghai a number of years ago, and I went to the computer department. I mean, half of the professors were not even Chinese, but Indians, Pakistanis, Africans, Americans, Argentinians, Brazilians. University rankings, though, are interesting. If you look at this list, you can see the first of the first 10 universities, there's only 1, 2, 3 which are not American, and they are from Britain. Then you get a bunch more from the United States. 14th is a Swiss university. Then a bunch more from the United States. Number 20 is Canada. So globalization was really the product of the post-World War II United States vision of a world. Now, we, of course, viewed the globalization as Americanization, but unfortunately for a lot of people in the United States, globalization has now escaped the control of the United States. Even though the education system in the United States remains the model of universities. American education is really a major contribution to the global economy. NYU, for example, even how it defines itself. The NYU world system is no longer just a university. And they, in their mission statement, they stress thriving beyond borders and across academic disciplines. It has emerged as one of the most networked and extensive worldwide platform for learning, teaching, researching, building knowledge and inventing new ways to meet humanity's challenges. And look at all the campuses around the world. I mean, I visited the Dubai campus, which is not even on the list, which is, oh yes, it is. Dubai is there in the United Arab Emirates. I visited their campus in Shanghai. Paris, I visited their campus. And so the way we describe global education, it is a worldwide platform for learning, teaching, research, building, knowledge. And so education is global. Now, I lived in Eastern Europe, in Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Russia, Bulgaria, when the Soviet system was collapsing. And what was the first thing the universities did? They adopted the global education system, which meant English was the language of global education. So I was teaching business English in Prague and Budapest, international politics and religion in Moscow. They redesigned the education system using the credit system that we have in the United States, 3 credits for a course. They also adopted the BA, MA, PhD system. They even adopted the American graduation system, which of course was taken from the Middle Ages in Europe, the caps and gowns and all of that. And so as education has gone global, it has been really adopting the American system. So it's no longer the American system. It has become the global system. And online education has only intensified this globalization, where even Harvard, you can go to Harvard Business School online. Harvard offers free online classes. I teach online. Students from all over the world can sign up. And so in New York, my college, Touro College, is closing down the bricks and mortar campuses, and the professors sit at home in their converted bedrooms, their home office, and like with this YouTube video, which I'm making now, professors can communicate around the world. Another aspect of globalization is the globalization of information. Google. Go on Google since 1998. Everything you need to know is on Google. Larry Page and Sergey Brin, PhD students from Stanford University, developed the Google system. I often wonder who came up with the word Google. But here again, you can log on to Google, you can get any information you want. Now, of course, as we're going to see towards the end of this program, a lot of people have not been very happy with this global free flow of information. The United States, China, and Russia, and Israel, and Iran, and Saudi Arabia, and many countries have tried to control Google. They don't want a free flow of information. If something happens terrible in a country, the country wants to censor it. But here again, there are ways around Google. There are ways around censorship where you can access the information. And many countries are not happy with it, but it's almost impossible to stop the free flow of information. The internet, where you can log on, AOL, Gmail, have a dozen other programs, and you can communicate with people around the world. My students from all over the world send me homework assignments, questions on Gmail. We do Zoom conferences, and they are constantly communicating with me. Whatever time they send it, I get a beep on my phone, I check, and I respond. And on the left, you see in the 1980s, where internet began, gradually it is spreading around the world, where you'll see people. I saw a photograph once of somebody in somewhere in Africa riding a camel through the desert and was chatting on his cell phone. I mean, he probably had a cousin who was living in New York City or London or Paris, and from his camel, he was communicating by satellite. So information is flowing around the world. YouTube, such as I'm making now, once it's posted, I will get comments from people all over the world. This is new technology. YouTube was 2005 look at the names of the founders: Chad Hurley, Steve Chen, Jawad Karim. The global founders. Who knows where they're from, but even the names of the founders of YouTube is a expression of global culture. When I post one of my YouTubes, whether it's Bristol Better You, how New York City invented the holiday season, or the American family from Queen Victoria to Adam and Steve, I post them. I can get up to thousands of views of my videos. They're used in classrooms, and people don't even acknowledge that they're using my videos because I post them for free. Facebook, another fascinating way of global free flow of information. Amazon.com, free flow, not just of information, but products. I went online to buy reading glasses. I didn't even know that there were reading glasses above 600. Well, I'm half blind now, and mine are 550, but my doctor told me, he said, well, go on Amazon, you'll find everything, products I didn't even know existed. When my parents turned 97 and they celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary, well, Hallmark store in New York looked at me like I was crazy when I wanted a 70th wedding anniversary card, but sure, I found it on Amazon. And so it is information. You go on Amazon and you come across products that you didn't even know existed. Well, of course, you're going to go on and you are going to buy it. Here again, this is the free flow of information. You pay for it by PayPal, and it arrives at your front door within a couple of days. Global migration, again, a fascinating aspect of this global world that is sweeping the continent. As I mentioned earlier, when I went to the doctor the last time, his office was a miniature United Nations. There was only one person who I couldn't identify by their accent. Latin Americans I could, Russians I could, Indians I could, Persians I recognized, Arabs I recognized, but there was one doctor there who was speaking to me, and I just couldn't place his accent. So I asked him, and he said, I am from Albania. 27% of all US doctors are foreign born. That's almost a third. Now, that doesn't even talk about nurses, anesthesiologists, the staff in the office, medical records keepers. This is global migration. You may do your medical education in India in English, But then as soon as you graduate, you start going online and finding job offers in some country where you're going to be earning American dollars or euros or Japanese yen. Where do most of the doctors in our hospitals come from? India, Pakistan, South Africa, Ireland, Nigeria, Germany, Egypt, Greece, Italy, Sri Lanka, and even countries that you would be surprised. Look at Haiti. When you think of the abysmal economic situation of Haiti, well, you say a doctor who goes to university there, of course, he wants to get out of Haiti as quickly as possible, move to New York, have a nice house and a yard and a two-car garage with two cars, sending his kids to good schools. Well, this is medical. Well, look at the graph on the left, agricultural products. 75% of the people who harvest the crops in the United States are from Mexico. Now, a third are from the United States, but they are usually the supervisors and the tractor drivers and truck drivers. But the guys and the girls in the fields are Mexicans. Many of them are illegal, but they are today considered essential workers, meaning their credentials are not questioned. If they are willing to pick tomatoes or lettuce all day in California or upstate New York or Virginia, they are essential to the American economy. Well, what spurs this global migration of millions of people? Well, on one hand, it is poverty. You leave a impoverished country in Mexico or Africa, you do what you can to get to a rich country, and you will send money back to support your family. Weather, rising seas are forcing millions of people out of places like Bangladesh, which flood every several months. Hurricanes ravishing the Caribbean. Last hurricane they had, which ravaged Puerto Rico, about a quarter of the population of Puerto Rico just got on a plane and came to the United States. They sent their kids to New York and Miami to go to school. Millions are fleeing Africa and the Middle East, fleeing wars and poverty, revolutions, getting on boats and trying to escape to Europe. Pollution, diseases caused by polluting air, places like Pakistan and Bangladesh and places in Kenya and Nigeria, where rich countries like the United States export their polluting and disease-causing industries. Well, eventually the workers wake up one day and say, why should I be working in a sweatshop in Nigeria making t-shirts for rich Americans when I die from the pollution caused by the dyes and the polluted air? This spurs the global migrations of people. Today, this is causing problems. As I speak, terrific problems of anti-Muslim sentiment in France. Too many Muslims, they want to get them out. The United States has its Muslim ban under Donald Trump. Donald Trump is building the wall to keep out the Mexicans, but still they continue to come. The Chinese diaspora, the United States and Europe and other countries are trying to stop the migration of Chinese around the world, but still there are approaching 7 million taking over in the United States. taking over entire neighborhoods. Where I live in Queens, people who like globalization and diversity celebrate Queens as the most diverse neighborhood on the face of the earth. But people like Donald Trump look in horror to the Chinese enclave in Flushing, the Hispanic enclave in Jackson Heights, the Orthodox Bukharian Jewish ghetto in Forest Hills. I mean, this is a reality, but it is opposed by many people. 7 million Americans are immigrants from other countries. And in fact, there are organizations that encourage immigration, sponsor immigration. Here we see Happier Abroad. 7 million Americans have also migrated abroad. We tend to think of migration as all the Mexicans and Chinese and Arabs and Africans coming to the United States. But we tend to forget that there are some 7 million Americans who have decided to move abroad. Here again, economic factors. You can see number one, Mexico is a favorite spot for Americans who have left the country because they can even get on a bus in Mexico City, come back to Texas, and go to the hospital using their American Medicare card. Their insurance policies are good in Texas, but not in Mexico. The American dollar, your Social Security check, goes much further in Mexico or the Philippines or Israel than it goes in the United States. So there are even not just travel agencies, but residential groups calling on people, migrate, go abroad, have a better life in another country. Money is one of the major factors for migration. Money flows across the border. We see what's his name? Ma, who founded Alibaba. Here again, raising money in China and New York and Paris and Frankfurt, building factories around the world, and encouraging people to migrate to wherever the jobs are available. Another aspect of globalization is entertainment. As I mentioned earlier, I watch CNN News, BBC, CCTV, DW, Deutsche Welle, and not France 2, but France 24, French television. When I'm on vacation and have a good cable, I'll watch Russian RTV, Al Jazeera in Arabic, Spanish, TV Brazil International. I mean, entertainment is global. So television is not just news and information, globalization, but it is entertainment. American movies dubbed into foreign languages, foreign films dubbed into English, travel shows of around the world, reports, Al Jazeera talking about topics that you would never hear in the United States, such as what's going on in the Arabic world, the plight of the Palestinians, programs that you would never be able to see on American television. I was watching RTV a while back, and they had a big report on the Americans who opposed the war in Iraq, the waterboarding, the torture, the mass murder, deserted from the American army, and got political asylum in Canada. Something I didn't even know about, but by watching foreign news broadcasts, you find out information on your own country that the United States has tried to suppress, the major American networks ignore, but when you listen to a foreign broadcast, you get this information. South American, especially Mexican soap operas dubbed into English. Japanese cartoons are very popular. Russian television, music, drama, opera spreading around the world. Books on fashion, on modern life, on the life of Lady Gaga are translated into Chinese and other languages. Whenever there's a new hairdo or something by a famous Hollywood star, you can be sure that every woman in China, Nigeria, and Russia, and Brazil wants to have the same hairdo or the same dress. Music goes global. Everybody knew Michael Jackson, Hollywood movies. Stephen King has probably been translated into more languages than Shakespeare. The dramas of BBC, not just news, but their historical dramas, their documentaries, once again, are also global information, global entertainment. Another aspect of globalization is the rise of global armies. These are called non-state actors in world politics. Historically, when we talk about a war, we think of one country going to war against another country. The rise of Germany, expansion of Germany, defeat by the United States and Great Britain and Russia. That is the traditional view of war. Well, in today's world of globalization, armies are no longer being controlled exclusively by a country, by a king, by a dictator, or by a president. There are a plethora of private armies which are no longer linked to a state, but might be linked to a religion, might be linked to an ethnic minority. On the left, we see the Tamil Tiger Army of Sri Lanka. See the island at the bottom of India. Here again, this is an ethnic group in Sri Lanka that raised its own army and declared its independence and went to war against the Buddhist majority in Sri Lanka. In Northern Ireland, you had the Protestant and Catholic militias who were fighting wars for the expulsion of the British from North Ireland and the reunification of Ireland. Boko Haram in Nigeria is again a Muslim army led by clerics and militant Muslims waging war against the central government. The JDL, the Jewish Defense League. Now, of course, a lot of these groups in the United States are called terrorist groups because every country wants to keep a monopoly on guns and warfare. But when you have groups like the Boko Haram and the Tamil Tigers and the Jewish Defense League, these are individuals who created their own private armies and went to war against other countries, against other groups. So in this age of globalization, you can have a Jewish army, the Jewish Defense League, which is not controlled by Israel or the United States or any other country, Jews from all over the world can join it. They can declare war against countries. They can murder Palestinians and Americans. And these are armies that even national governments are no longer able to control. The most famous example was just recently ISIS, where a group of militant, dedicated Muslims said it is time to destroy the nation states of Syria, of Jordan, and of Iraq and Saudi Arabia and create a Muslim empire. So a group of Muslims organized an army and declared war against the kings and presidents and dictators in the Middle East. And this was ISIS, or ISIL as they call it, very commonly called the Islamic State. Muslims from all over the world joined, went to the Islamic State, had military training, and were building an entire new political entity aimed at wiping countries like Syria and Iraq off of the map. Well, of course, no country wants to see the nation state disappear. And so the United States went to war and wiped out ISIS in Iraq and tried to do the same thing in Syria. But this was the first time that independent armies were no longer controlled by a president or a dictator or a general in a country. Most famous example was Al-Qaeda, established by a group of Muslims. Osama bin Laden declared war on the United States. And one person with his own private army was able to accomplish what Hitler and Stalin and Mussolini were unable to do. And that was attack the American mainland, destroy the World Trade Center, bomb the Pentagon. And this was not a war between two countries. It was a war between a private army and the United States. And so the world today is no longer a world where countries control armies. You have the money, you have the means of communication, you have the technology, you can create your own army. And we see these are private armies growing up in places like Afghanistan, where they're overthrowing the government, fighting against the United States, Iraq, Palestine, Israel, with all of its atomic bombs and ultra-modern technology, still can't wipe out the Palestinian resistance and demand for an independent country. In India, Philippines, in China, Chechnya, other independent armies attempting to overthrow governments and replace them. So the military is no longer controlled by the nation state. Now, if you have the means and the technology and the intelligence and dedication, you can create your own private global army. A very exciting aspect of this globalization and this flat world is the fact that, as I said earlier, if you have the brains, the dedication, you can become what Thomas Friedman calls a super empowered individual. People like Bill Gates, Osama bin Laden, Dalai Lama, they have as much power in the world, if not more, than half of the presidents and dictators and kings of the world. Bill Gates with his technological savvy, Osama bin Laden with his military genius, Dalai Lama with his spiritual charisma, can confront some of the most powerful dictators, kings, and princes of the world. You have knowledge of technology, you can gather supporters, rally financial power. You too can become a super empowered individual. Super empowerment is no longer restricted to kings, generals, and dictators. Oprah, the richest woman on TV. Whenever she recommends a book, she's so casual. She'll just pick up a book and said, "Oh, last night I sat at home and I was reading this book." She'll hold it up and show it to you. Well, you can be sure that that very moment, everybody is buying that book. Well, she's not stupid. She planned that well in advance. Every bookstore in the country, if not the world, was warned Oprah is going to show this book on television. Every woman and a lot of men will buy it. Well, Oprah knows very well this is what's going to happen. And before she picked up that book, she had made an agreement that maybe 10% of the price of that book would flow into her purse. Here again, when she speaks, when she wears a dress, a new earring, when her hair is done, casually mentions that I was in Cancun last weekend and I stayed at this particular hotel. That hotel knows in advance. They double their prices. She gets 10%. George Soros manipulating the money market, shows him on Time magazine, controlling world finance. He mentions something, the stock market goes up or it goes down. He's famous for breaking the Bank of England. Ted Turner and Robert Murdoch, press. If your newspaper, the Wall Street Journal, mentions something or ignores something, influences the opinions of millions. There was just an article today as Donald Trump has lost the election. I'm speaking now, this is November 2020. He just lost the election and doesn't want to admit it. Well, it was considered very important today in the press, and I read several newspapers, where Robert Murdoch made the comment that Donald Trump lost the election. Even Donald Trump hasn't admitted that. The Republicans haven't admitted that. But when Robert Murdoch admitted that the age of Donald Trump was over, and this was reported in the Wall Street Journal, it basically showed that he had the power to decide and literally tell Donald Trump, your time is over. Edward Snowden, again, another superpowered individual, captured the power of information. He who gets access to documents can distribute them, can cause the rise and fall of governments. Probably the most hated man in Washington, because the secrets he revealed were damaging to the entire American government. He is now basically in hiding, but still, if you control the faucet of information, you have access to documents, you have great power. Now, a final aspect of globalization, which is not often discussed, is the globalization of world religions. And we see on this map the diaspora of Indians, people from India. Some 26 million people have migrated from India, taking Hinduism with them. United States, South America, Europe, Africa, Australia, South Asia, the Middle East, Japan. So you a religion which at one time and for thousands of years was the religion of the Indian subcontinent has now become a global religion. I attended a Hindu wedding here in Flushing, Queens, and it ended up almost in a riot because the older people insisted on sitting on the floor on carpets for dinner. The younger people said, oh, well, this is America. We sit on chairs at tables. Well, the older people said, yes, but we are not from America. We are from India. And in India, we sit on the floor. The young people said, well, you might be from India, but I was born in Flushing, Queens, and I am an American. And so you see the adaptation or the attempt to adapt a religion which has for centuries, if not thousands of years, been limited to a subcontinent, a small area, suddenly becoming a global religion. Where, as I speak, the new Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, is half Indian, very proud of her South Indian mother and heritage. And so you see that Indians are not just in India, in Kenya and in Uganda and Tanzania and South Africa, huge populations of Indians with Hindu temples. And in places like New York, they demand that their holy days be respected, that the children not be required to go to school. So a local religion becoming global. Well, this mass migration of people, missionaries going around the world, has led to the globalization of many religions. In England, the Church of England, and in the United States, its counterpart, the Episcopal Church, are rapidly losing members. But in places like Africa and South America, the Church of England is growing. Today, there are more members of the Church in England and Africa than there are in England. There are more Methodists in Africa than there are in Britain and the United States combined. Buddhists are migrating around the world, taking their temples with them. Presbyterians are becoming global. Hindu temples are sprouting in every country of the world. So this has really introduced a major world conflict, a world where religions are fighting with each other for members. Many people say that the Church of England and Presbyterians and Methodists in the United States will simply be wiped out by the mass rise of Pentecostal and evangelical Christians. But yet there will be strong Presbyterian, Methodist, and Episcopal churches in Africa and in South Asia. So globalization is undermining many older traditions, forcing them to adapt to a new world and confront the reality of the presence of millions of Hindus, of Buddhists, and Muslims in countries which were previously exclusively of one particular religion. Another aspect of religion is the rise of charismatic, powerful religious leaders. John Paul II, Pope from 78 to 2005, once again claims that he was the one who brought down the Soviet Empire, beginning in Poland. The most well-traveled pope in world history, traveling from country to country, becoming the first perfect example of a super empowered individual. He had no armies. Very often the Vatican was on the verge of bankruptcy, scandals in the church over sects and traditionalists and modernists, but still he put the Catholic Church on the map. And even if he would go to countries which were ostensibly hostile to the Catholic Church, like Iran, the Muslim countries, some countries in Africa or Israel, still his personality was very powerful. And so we see the globalization of a person of religion. Think of Billy Graham, a name recognized around the world. Think of Reverend Moon, the founder of the Unification Movement, with his massive global weddings. Here again, showing the globalization of religion. No religion better exemplifies the globalization than the Mormons. 1980, look at the map. United States and Canada, the vast majority of Mormons, 73%. The rest of the world, Europe, South America, Asia, and Australia, small, 27%. 30 years later, the United States Mormon community is less than half. Almost as many Mormons in South America as there are in the United States. Combining South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and Australia, 52% of Mormons are now outside the United States. Now, this is a perfect example of a local religion going global. Nothing could be more American than the Mormons. The Mormons believe that the native Indians are the lost tribes of Israel. Jesus walked and preached in America after his resurrection. He came to America and preached. The Garden of Eden was in America. The second coming would be in America. And at Salt Lake City was the sacred city indicated by God to Brigham Young. But now it is a global religion where there are more Mormons from the rest of the world than there are in the United States. Recently, I was walking around in Queens and I saw two Mormon missionaries, young guys, white shirts, black pants, with a little seal on the side that said elder something or other. And they were walking in the neighborhood of, not far from here, Jackson Heights. And they were speaking Spanish. And so I talked to them. They were Mormon missionaries from Peru who had come to New York to convert Americans to the Mormon church. And so the Mormons have gone global. Now, other religious groups have gone global. Evangelicals, which began in Los Angeles and in the slums of the major cities. Now, Brazil is a predominantly evangelical country. Bolsonaro is an evangelical Christian. The president of Ethiopia is evangelical, and the evangelicals are at war against the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. President of Mexico is an evangelical, introducing evangelical Christianity into the public schools, causing all kinds of scandal. Latin America is being swept by evangelical Christian missionaries. On the left, you see the Rebbe's army. These are the Lubavitchers, a handful of Jewish Orthodox survivors in Eastern Europe, survived Hitler, came to New York, and now from their headquarters in Brooklyn are multiplying by the thousands, sending out missionaries around the world to reclaim non-practicing Jews for Judaism, outreach to Christians to bring them into the Orthodox Jewish movement. So here again, these are local religions, whether they're American evangelicals and Pentecostals, whether they are Lubavitchers from Brooklyn, or whether they are other small religions such as Mormons, have now gone global. Last January, I was in Brazil and I visited the Igreja Universal do Reino de Dios. And you can see the picture in the upper left, a reproduction, they believe, of the Temple of Solomon built in Sao Paulo, an evangelical church which is now sweeping South America. Below that, you see the Mourids from Senegal, a group founded by Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba back in the 1800s as a Muslim religious community, now spreading around the world with a big mosque here in New York City. Santeria, which at one time was local in Dominican Republic, through migration, through tourism, has now become a major world religion. Voodoo, Mama Lola from her voodoo temple in Brooklyn has made voodoo not a folk religion from Haiti, but a major world religion. Hare Krishna did so much to spread Hinduism around the world. I remember when I was in the 70s and 80s, you couldn't get through Port Authority bus station or a train station anywhere in the world without seeing the Hare Krishna dancers. And the vast majority who had nothing to do with India, they were Americans. And at the top, the guy wearing the crown is Reverend Moon of the Unification Movement. Began as a small group of Messianic Christians in Korea, now has spread around the world and is most famous for their massive wedding blessings. Well, of course, to wrap everything up, not everybody is happy with all this globalization. As I speak, Donald Trump is clinging desperately to the presidency with his Make America Great Again. Get out of the United Nations, get out of the World Health Organization, make America great and to hell with the rest of the world. Here again, countries are claiming their sovereignty. Stop this globalization. Make America, make Germany, make China great again. And so globalization, as you can see in the book on the right, is again becoming a controversial issue. Should the world go global, or should we barricade ourselves in our walled nation states? Globalization is viewed by many as a threat to national independence, national sovereignty, I want a salad where everything in that salad is made in America. I don't want Mexican avocados and tomatoes from Guatemala. And this is reflected in many reactions against globalization around the world. The revival of nationalism, whether it's the Alternative for Deutschland, get rid of immigrants, make Germany great again. Marine Le Pen in France, make France great again, get rid of Muslims and Jews and Hindus and blacks, make France great. Brexit in Britain, leave the European Union, become an independent country, totally in control of our destiny. And so national sovereignty is becoming a very important code word. Russia wants to make Russia great again. Israel builds settlements, ethnic cleansing in Jerusalem, get rid of the Palestinians, get rid of the Christians and Muslims, make Israel great. Iran, the Islamic Revolution of Iran, it is a Shiite Islamic state. Many countries are banning Christmas. I was in India not too long ago, and it was in my usual January vacation. There were already signs that ban Valentine's Day, free love, free sex, marriage for love. The Hindu said, no, you marry for the family, marry for the country. Love has nothing to do with it. Even signs, stop globalization. So, on that happy note, let me thank you very much for joining me today. Once again, this is Dr. Ronald Brown. If you have any comments or anything, please send me an email at ronbrownmedia@gmail.com. And as you see, I am still busily traveling. On the left was my vacation in Dubai, where I went up to the Burj Khalifa Tower, the tallest skyscraper in the world. On the right is me and my last Mexican vacation, where you see I was there for the Day of the Dead, always collecting new information and preparing new programs for you to show how religion and politics are merging in our world today, causing all kinds of issues. But like globalization, religion is on an upswing. It is once again become a major determining factor in world politics. So, once again, let me thank you for joining me in this program, and I hope to see you in the near future. So once again, this is Dr. Ronald Brown logging off. Thank you for visiting with me, and I hope to see you again in the near future. Bye-bye. Have a good evening.